This is a leaders group. This is not just a book mastermind. This is a leaders group. We are developing world leaders here. Just the vision of this. I have such a different, I'm texting a group of people that we've invited to things, and I've invited lots of people to this. Sorry, my eyes water anyway, so don't worry about that. I'm learning why. I don't know. I have to learn that yet. So I'm texting them this morning, say, so who, to those of you who are the leaders in this group, and by the way, you get to choose if you're a leader or not, you need to be on here. You need to be with this group of people. So get in here. So the people that I'm inviting, they're going to be part of this group.
Amen.
Somehow, some way. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, because it's had that impact for me, the chunking. It's
and
there.
Just to put things in perspective for you guys, here with all this chaos going on behind the scenes of losing TC, other pieces falling away of the quote support system, they still have 3 or 4 pending, 8 or 9 active listings, and either 24 or 26 pipeline. So they have built this machine over the last 90 days and are still running it, even though these other things are happening because of the change here. Remember, 90% of your success is mindset. Only 10% is skill set. And so Jeanette's really, and it's been a joy to watch this shift in mindset of, I got this. In fact, you guys might remember it from previous reading. I got this. Whatever it is that's coming at you, whatever the universe, your God is delivering to you, you got this. And if you don't think you do in the moment, then you have an entire room full of people to borrow their belief, make a call, talk about it, and get that help and support. As well, though, we got sales skills. And I want to get back into the content. I think it's chapter 8. It's sales skills. And again, going back through and reading it today, I'm highlighting even more. And by the way, I took the 9 questions on the qualified today and rewrote them on the recruiting piece and added them into the script. So I know Mark's chomping at the bit at that. I worked through this whole building value piece and how we can do it educationally, like we've been talking about. I love creating desire, still working on that one, but that's a personal challenge. And then overcoming objections. I want to make sure today, not only we talk about overcoming objections, we talk about the objection handling process. And I'm going to make sure I introduce that to you guys. And then actually asking for the sale, closing, and finally, follow up. By the way, this follow-up piece for me is the mission critical of you guys having a business rather than a job, because it's not follow up to get them over the finish line. It's follow up after the finish line. It's building long-term relationships that are advocates for you, people that want to see you succeed, that are consumers, customers, clients, whatever label you want to put on them. Yet, man, they get a charge by seeing you play at a high level and succeed. So these 7 steps we just ripped through. Who wants to talk about which piece of sales skills from chapter 8, The Ultimate Sales Machine? What do you guys have?
It's actually chapter 10.
Is it 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is chapter 10. I got the label right, not the number right. So thank you for that, Celeste. And what do you have from chapter 10?
So just so you guys get, recently, and I say recently, within the last couple of years, my parents went through getting a reverse mortgage on their home, and 2 people came out. One person was considered the salesperson, and the second person was considered the manager. And what was shocking to me, and this is a lot of where we're learning, how are we being in our own appointments, our presentations. These people came and presented to my folks, and they had me sit in on the meeting just to listen. And I was shocked that all they did was talk. and never asked a question. And as I'm watching this happening, my dad actually raised his hand so he could speak, and they wouldn't acknowledge him. And I was just dying. And you know me, I had to finally comment. I'm like, is anyone going to ask my father what he has a question about? And I actually had to say it because they were just ignoring him. And I thought, how is it that you're in a business where you're actually called a salesperson, but you don't ask for input from your client? What do you think they want to know? I learned a lot from that. And I pray to God when I'm in my appointments that I am watching body language and I am watching for ways to stop and ask, what do you want to know more about? Things like that. I mean, I'm just saying, we could all be way better than we are. You're muted.
Isn't that awesome? Even I mute to stop the background noise as we should. And what I was saying is, absolutely, we all can get better no matter what level we're playing at. And by the way, don't compare your insides to someone else's outsides. You see someone else who happens to be better at this skill set. It's only time on task over time. So Celeste, I really want you to tie this into sales step number 2, qualifying the buyer. Because what I'm hearing from what you witnessed was selling the buyer. I'm going to shove this down their throat so they get a reverse mortgage with us.
Well, we talked about this yesterday. What's the one question we can be asking that someone can be speaking and you're receiving, you're listening? And it was the little acronym, tell me about yourself. Ta-da! I hope I'm getting a smile out of everybody because this is the basics of basics. And if we're not asking that question, how do we know that they're even a prospect?
What would make our time today a 10 out of 10 for you?
That's a wonderful question. Write that down.
Another one that I put in early on. What we've learned from previous content, which I love. Right at the beginning, asking, let's say it's a listing presentation. And I talked about this at the door. The moment they open the door, we get inside. First question. I am so excited that you decided to list with me tonight. So I can get a no right there. By the way, there have been times I've gotten a yes right there because I was the first agent that they interviewed that actually showed up on time. That was their only decision point for quality versus poor quality was, wow, they're punctual. Yet getting that no right out of the gate. Embrace it. What else are you guys pulling out of the content? I see Caesar going.
Well, the first sales step is to establish rapport, and that's obviously what the people at Celeste's parents' home did not do. Establish any type of rapport. Hey, how you doing? Tell me about yourself. What would you like to know about today? And then the second was to qualify, also to see even if you guys are a match. Another book I was reading, it says you almost act like, well, I'm not even sure if I can help you until I really find out more. Almost like a doctor's not going to prescribe you any medicine until they ask you a few questions. They see what you, well, actually, they don't ask you what you eat. Maybe they should. But that's the second step is really to qualify there to see how your product can help them, to see if they can even help them. And so that's a big establishment point there, is to see where if the match fits, right?
So it's one of my favorite ones that I will bring into a conversation. If someone is a high D and they're attempting just to push to how much, what's your commission, any of those other choices. You guys want to write it down. I'll just give you the piece. Prescription without diagnosis is the definition of malpractice. Prescription without diagnosis is the definition of malpractice. How do I know I have the right solution without first discovering what you truly need?
Say it again, prescription.
Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. I'll give you one of my favorite examples. You go into the doc because you're getting a little older. I won't say anybody is. And doc, my knee hurts when I do this. Fantastic. I'll schedule for an amputation tomorrow. You go, what? Right? Yet we do the same thing in real estate. We think we got the answers rather than finding out what the need really is. Another one of my greatest moments, and by the way, this was Georgetown, Texas. I'm calling expireds. And one of the questions I always ask right out of the gate, if you did sell your house, where were you going to move to? Mm-hmm. And the woman starts breaking down in tears because her dream home she was in contract on, 10 acres on the river, the deal fell apart yesterday, which is why they canceled their listing. And I got to spend time talking about that, what was important about it. And she told me how she could see her family there, down on the dock, hanging out, the grandkids coming, playing in the lagoon. She had the whole thing in her mind. And then the follow-up question, because I now knew what the real challenge was, is if I could resurrect that deal, would it then make sense for you to get your house back on the market?
If you resurrect that deal, you're probably going to be God himself to them. They will love you for the rest of your life. We are really, for those, we forget that our job is to help people, right? And if you help someone out of a major problem, they remember you. I remember the doctor who delivered my son. I remember all these people that had key moments within my life. That's be unforgettable. I like that, Russ. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And again, if I was selling, I never would have discovered what the real issue was. And so we were able to solve the issue, get that deal back together, get the house sold, and move her to what her dream really was. Is she calling me with any other real estate stuff going forward? The deal I have with Spencer right now, I got him out of a jam. And Doug and Jeanette know Spencer. They're working with me on the deal there in Austin. Is Spencer easy, Doug? And yet, he's tough, and yet he's my tough. I get to serve this man even sometimes when he doesn't want to. What else you guys have from the content?
I like the one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's your criteria for making your choice? I had a client one time, him and his wife were both FBI agents, and they were on the logistical side, and he was really tough, the husband was. And I asked him, I said, are you going to be interviewing other agents? And he was mum, everything was mum. And I said, like you, I'm really good at what I do. And it's really important for me to ask as many questions as I can to get the information so I can give you guys the best information up front. So I'm going to ask you again, how are you going to make your decision when you're interviewing the agents? And once I confronted him like you, Russ, D's appreciate that. And then he brought his guard down. I think in some cases, I think D's want you to get in their face and ask them those questions. That's my opinion, because I appreciate that. Just get to the point. And once I did that, I broke down the walls, and then he gave me, but he was stonewalling me on every question. And I would go back to it again. What I'm trying to do, just like you, is get as much information as possible so I can serve you the best way that I can. So I'm going to ask you again, what's your criteria for choosing a real estate agent? I know you have an answer. And then
that sounds like an interrogation.
And then this is what Russ taught me. Shut your mouth. Whoever speaks first loses. And it's uncomfortable, but it's wonderful at the same time.
And by the way, client, here's how you make it not feel like an interrogation. Once they have answered a question, you start with giving them back part of their answer. So you show you heard and understood, which means you get to, as we learned earlier this week, LI, listen intensely. and pay attention. So the weed whackers here, who else has something to add to the conversation?
I want to add something too, Coach, that later on in that chapter, the questions are very similar to the ones that the list that Bob Burb gave us yesterday in that one document of how to establish more rapport. Oh, how long have you your job? How long have you been there? Do you enjoy it? All of these things that got deeper. Now, just I love the tie-in with that book to this book. That the questions are just the same, basically. So that was another aha moment from that chapter.
Awesome, and Caesar, thanks for always being willing to speak up. Who else?
Hi, Russ. I have a question. On the chapter 10, it says sales is a science, and it is the result of in-depth experience of the churches on the front line of capitalism as a top producer, and then as the line executive who increase performance of every sales team. Can you define a little more detail about this?
All right. So this section, Chet Holmes is talking about his experience. So he started working doing magazine advertising sales for Charlie Munger. Who doesn't know who Charlie Munger is? Tom, who owns Berkshire Hathaway?
I don't know.
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Whenever you see Warren Buffett on stage presenting, there is somebody sitting right next to him. That is Charlie Munger. He's actually the man behind the curtain.
That is Charlie Munger.
Making Berkshire Hathaway what it was. Chet Holmes worked with him as a sales guy, helping build one of those businesses, a magazine one, and absolutely crushed it. He then moved into a leadership role, helping the C-suite get advertising / marketing / sales, all the stuff we're learning cranking up. And again, think about this right out of the gate on this chapter. If my memory serves me correctly, 92% of businesses do not have a sales process. They literally don't have a formal step-by-step. This is the conversation we have, a formal step-by-step. This is how we move someone from an inbound call because the marketing worked. That's so already assuming that they've moved to what I want all of you to move to ultimately. It's just hard, Don. A marketing-focused, prospecting-enhanced business.
I missed that. Could you say that again? Just real quick.
So many of you that are new in this room, Don and I historically have always played with the taste great, less filling, Miller Lite commercial, because I'm the sales guy, outbound call, crushing it. Let's bring people in by going and getting them. And Don has been historically, in fact, changed our industry into being marketing based and individual agent marketing based. And
Don, this was recorded.
Yeah, don't worry. I can delete this out because I have editing rights, so it's perfect. And so I want you guys to get to being marketing focused, prospecting enhanced. That's the goal for all of you because it's so much easier to handle the inbound calls. And yet here he's talking about the inbound calls come in, and now we do not have a formal process for how to have the first conversation and build the rapport and qualify them and actually get an appointment set for the second conversation, which I'll just use the listing side, for example, which is the listing appointment. And then having a true written listing process for how you take them through the steps of getting from interviewing you to committing to you and signing a listing agreement. We're all winging it for the most part. Some of you have been in processes with me before, so you've got pieces of this, which is awesome. And yet, Elizabeth, I know you haven't yet, which may bring us back to Gateway to Mastery firing up again here in fourth quarter. I could see that happen. Does that help get you some clarity, Elizabeth?
Yeah, it just running on different direction. That's why I was kind of following up, trying to fine tune a process that I should follow, because I was just so scared with the condo project, with the lane project, with this and that. It was like so overwhelming. Plus EXP itself has so much stuff you need to learn. It kind of really feel like you got to get a process right. Otherwise you're lost in a whole big chunk of
Then
ocean of wisdoms.
let me bring this back for you, Elizabeth, and just get to some older content, to some foundational content to help everybody. Because if you're there, other people are. There are 4 foundational elements to success in this business, period. So you're going to work on these first. Number 1 is calendar. That you have a calendared life, a scheduled life, a structured life that includes taking care of God first, family second, and your business third, and you've built your life that way. The purpose of life is to truly live before you die, and the purpose of business is to fund that perfect life. So you need to know what it is and get it on the calendar and schedule it. We did our calendar class last week. Everybody who showed up raved about the conversations we had, and we will bring it up again. Step 2 is a database. Every single service company or service individual, the only asset they really have is their database. And you've got to build that, and there's a dance you get to do with it. And if you do that piece, you will have mathematical certainty in your real estate business. Number 3 is conversations. You are all paid in direct proportion to the number of conversations you have. So when we start, it's prospecting focused, marketing enhanced. We get better at our conversations. We do quantity over quality first, and we crank up the conversations. And all of a sudden we get to the magic pending number, which somebody in this room announced yesterday. Justin's finally at his magic pending number. So he now can put more effort into marketing and start making the shift to being marketing focused, prospecting enhanced. Yet it became because he had conversations. And number 4 is knowing your numbers. Not just the financials and having your P&L right, your balance sheet right, your chart of accounts right. Also knowing the numbers of production. How many conversations to an appointment? How many appointments to a contract? All the numbers we've talked and tracked. So those are the 4 foundational elements. And I'm going to give you 4 more. The next 4 are your actual job description as a real estate agent. And these are in priority order, not importance order. The reverse is importance order. Priority order means this is how we schedule it, yet we allow importance order to trump the scheduling. Lead generate. Find new relationships. Lead follow-up. Nurture existing relationships. Go on appointments. Convert those relationships to contracts. And then negotiate those contracts to get them into ultimately a sale and closed. Lead gen, lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts. Elizabeth, if you just focused on those 8, you would be $1 million producer. So, Don, you've been waiting to jump in. You get to close this, baby. At least we're not watching you continue to walk and get nowhere. You're now ready to go somewhere. What do you got?
I was pumping weights over here. You just couldn't see me. So a couple things I want to do. First of all, let's go back to the 4 things you just finished with. Lead generation. Nowhere in there did I hear marketing. Except that I want people to hear that that's the same place. It's a question of outbound lead generation or inbound lead generation. It's still about lead generation. You have to get people to know you, like you, and trust you. We heard that from a wise man yesterday. So that's one thing I wanted to add in there, so we don't just go, because again, I think Russ has always taken on, when I get to a certain place, I start marketing. My take on it is, when I start the business, I start marketing and build my business. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go get deals now while I'm waiting for deals to come later. Okay, so there's a distinction I wanted to make in that. Second thing I wanted to finish with is I wanted to go back to almost the beginning of the conversation when I was winded a little bit over there. I didn't want to huff and puff in everybody's ears. And that was when I looked at this this piece that you used in the very beginning, Russ, which was, or I guess it was really based on Celeste's conversation, which was just dumping the presentation, just dumping, right? And one thing I want to go back to is a book in the past who talked about contrast. Who remembers the section on contrast? So to set up contrast, we could absolutely say, and by the way, so many agents, I see so many agents that just really hurt my heart. They come in and just tell you what they're going to do. I'm very interested in what you want to do. So we contrast so that they're watching other agents do exactly that and going, oh, this is one of those people. Right? And it's a little bit like what you saw in the movie Air when the Nike guy says, when you meet with Converse, they're going to do this. And when you meet with Adidas, they're going to do this. And guess what? When they got into the rooms with those people, they did exactly that. And Jordan came back to them and said, you told us how it was going to be. You're telling the truth. We're going with you.
Amen.
So anyway, that's the end. That's my ending for the day.